All right, now the strike at Transnet has entered day 9. Business has described the consequences as devastating, as imported and exported goods cannot move effectively through our ports. Scores of ships have been stuck at sea. Hundreds of trucks have been stuck at ports in South Africa. The two unions involved, the United National Transport Union, UNTU, and the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, SATAWU, have asked for double-digit increases. UNTU has said they want at least an inflation-linked wage hike. The unions rejected a new offer tabled by Transnet this week involving an increase of 4.5% with additional increases of 5.3% over the next 2 years. Now, Labour analyst Terry Bell says that a long-term plan is needed to fix Transnet that serves the interests of business, unions and workers at large. He joins us now. Mr. Bell, thank you. You're saying the strike, firstly, has undermined the core principle of trade unionism, which not only considers the workers in the strike, but workers across the economy. Just explain that and what will the knock-on effects be for other workers?
Well, for example, we are in South Africa a major exporter of fresh produce. At the moment, we have the berry season, for example, in full swing. Now, those things are very time sensitive. They have to get out, they have to get to the ports, they have to get to the markets as quickly as possible. Now, that puts at risk, I would say, many more workers than even who work in Transnet, who work within the agricultural sector. So it's a knock-on effect. And what I'm saying here is that unions have always had one principle as the core, and that was worker unity. And that's not worker unity within one factory or plant or even industry. It's worker unity across the board. So there is an interest here in the workers staying together in order to get this thing resolved. There is also an interest from the point of view of the producers. Now, they've already come to the party and said, look, and this is way back before Transnet even increased to their latest offer, they said, we'll bridge the gap between what Transnet is offering and what the unions are demanding. And the unions are not demanding the 12, 13%. That was the usual initial demand. All they're asking for is, please don't cut our wages in order to go below the acknowledged level of inflation, which is in fact a wage cut. That's all they're asking for. Now, the producers have said, we'll come to that, but at the same time, they've demanded a poison pill, as I see it, and that is that in order to do this, we want a guarantee that workers in the ports, etc., and this incredible logistics enterprise should be declared essential workers and therefore forbidden to strike, which removes the only power that workers really have. So that's not on. But what I'm trying to say is that here you have a common interest between the workers and the producers. Government is in effect the board of directors of this company, which is responsible for the mess the whole thing is in at the moment, for the incompetence, the corruption, the maladministration. That has been the responsibility of government. We should not now concentrate simply on this immediate wage dispute between management and the workers. It's a much more complex issue, and there are a number of agendas at play, including those people who want to vultures hanging on the margins, waiting to perhaps capitalize on elements of privatization. There are all sorts of agendas at play here, and I think we should get away from this. We need now, this is a national crisis. I would put it on a par with that of Eskom in terms of the immediacy of the potential damage to the economy and to all of us that this opposes.
Yeah, and we know that workers are suffering generally because of the economic malaise generally. So like you say, always broader impact. And you say government is to blame. Is that why you're rejecting these calls that we often hear for a social compact between unions, management and government? You say that's superficial, and we've just heard it so many times.
Well, I've actually referred to it as a chimera, as something which is ridiculous, for the simple reason that within our system, employers have a duty to their shareholders to increase profits to the maximum. On the other hand, workers have an interest in their members of increasing their wages and conditions, which are a cost against profits. So they're diametrically opposed. You cannot have a long-term social compact. What you can have, I mean, since coalition seems to be the in word these days. You can have a temporary coalition, a matter of a coming together of interests, of a particular interest. And I would say here is a classic example between fresh produce producers. Also, I mean, minerals producers, the iron ore people, for example, are having to cut down their exports at the moment. And this all comes down to the fact that government will lose export revenue. But not only that, because the exports have fallen, you end up with a lack of profit, which means, therefore, a fall in income tax revenues. So, I mean, I don't know. Government seems to be, they're responsible, and they should really come to the party not as equal partners. They should be facing the combined unions and the producers to get together and say, do something about this and do something now to correct this mess that's in Transnet, and also hopefully with a timetable. This is what we will do, and maybe get an independent body to actually monitor this and make sure that they do it, because they're responsible. It's a mess that they've landed us in. We can get out of it, and we need to get out of it as a matter of urgency. If we don't, we're all going to suffer.
All right, so coalition governments aren't working that well, but you say there could be this temporary coalition of unions, of workers and business then facing government. But what does that look like? Because, I mean, the thorny issue is the wage hike. So is there some sort of reconstruction plan for Transnet that involves a inflation-linked wage hike now for workers? What will it look like?
Well, why don't they get together, the producers, the people, the exporters, whether they're minerals or fresh produce and the unions, and say, look, this is what we actually need in order to go ahead. And this is what we want government to do. We want a proper, decent, incorrupt, efficient management in there. We want to have people who actually know what they're doing to get the thing going and get something going. Now, you have another aspect as well, of course, that comes into this, and that's the emotional one. You have workers who also feel very, very hard done by when they hear in this past week that government ministers have been given the cap taken off their utility bills, given another 100,000 in their vehicle allowance. Now, that annoys workers. Now, that's an emotional factor you have to bear in mind as well, why workers get more and more angry. So I think we need to sit down and we need to have open discussions right across the board about all these matters, and above all, sort out the mess that is in Transnet at the moment and say, right, this is what the situation is. What is the profit? What is the profitability? If the employers are prepared, the producers are prepared to cough up the difference between whatever Transnet was offering, fine. Put that forward as a temporary measure. Thank you very much. The unions will accept that. But at the same time, they're not going to accept the fact that workers should have the only weapon they have, the strike, taken away from them.
Look, a legal analyst this week said that fix proposed by business could lead to more strikes across the economy. I don't know if you have a comment on that. And also, finally, Mr. Bell, labour relations are so poor in this country. So you're talking about bringing together business and unions when we've always seen a very fractured relationship. It would be quite extraordinary. And do you think that unions are making considered wage offers in that relationship when they deal with business? Are they saying, you know, it's not only what workers want, but also what companies can pay, what the economy needs, what Transnet can handle? Are they looking at the books? Is it well thought through?
The point about this, very simply, is every time there's a strike, we have the same arguments regurgitated over and over again. The employers can't afford it, the workers are demanding too much, they will collapse the enterprise. Nonsense. Workers are perfectly well aware they need the jobs, they need the income. And in fact, if you open up the books, and that's one of the problems, and not in this, particularly in this instance, if the books are opened up and you say, right, this is the situation we're in, workers have done deals in the past. There is a history of this. So the point is, workers are in no way interested in collapsing businesses. They're interested in the business continuing, but getting a fair share out of it. So the point is, it's really a bit of a nonsense to talk about workers collapsing things because they're sort of anarchistic Luddites or whatever. They're not. But you actually need to have honest, open negotiation. And that's one of the problems, of course, because you do have different agendas at play. And I think the media, and this is why we should have debates like this more openly, the media play an important role here in exposing the nuances behind the various talks and negotiations that are going on. We need to understand that it's not just a matter of, oh, the workers have suddenly popped up and want 12% and the employer. There's also the problem that invariably unions say we want 20%, and they know that the employer is going to offer 5%, and they know they're going to settle at 7%. I mean, that's basically, it's gone on for years. It's a game that is played and perhaps should not be played anymore.
All right. Thank you for your analysis. And yes, sure. Let's delve more into the details. That was Terry Bell, Labour analyst.